Hello, and welcome to another episode. Today we're going to talk about the other half of Kute-Uchi, the hand looping portion of Japanese braiding. For those who don't know, Kute-Uchi actually translates as hand strap, and today we're going to talk about how to make those hand straps and why they're important. For more information on why loop braiding is called Kute-Uchi, visit my blog and look for the article named Kute-Uchi, Where Did the Name Come From? So anyways, today is about why we need hand straps for the hand looping and how to make them. So a real quick demonstration on making some of the hand loop moves. And so you can see I've got the threads spaced evenly apart. So basically I would come in with my hand like this, my thumb down, and pull them over. And as you can see, and then I'll put that loop into that hand, as you can see, the loops start to roll over on themselves. And then now you'd have to sit here and be like, okay, is that the right one that goes there, or does this go over there, or am I rolling them? As you can see, it's quite easy for the threads to roll over each other. So, you know, and even trying to keep them separated. So, as you can see, the loops have a tendency to roll over on each other. So today we're going to talk about hand straps and how to make them. Now you can make them out of thicker yarn, as something that makes it harder for the loops to roll over each other. I like to use some leather. This is 10-12, I believe, if I remember right. It's just over an 1/8 inch thick. I'll put it in the description, the exact weight this one is. But when you go with leather, you want to be careful not to use something that is too supple. So this one right here, this is a leather that was dyed white. And the tanning process made it much more supple. It's more supple than the other leather, as you can. More supple than the other leather, as you can see. Oh, there we go. Now I'm in camera. So as you can see, it's more supple. This is actually acceptable, only because it's so thick. Again, this is about an 1/8 of an inch. I think it's just a 1/16 thinner than this stuff, and this is okay, and this will work. I can't find my cutting mat, so I'm using several sheets of cardstock here to cut on. So I apologize for this being sideways. It's kind of difficult to reach around my camera and to make the cutting stuff. So basically, the length that I chose here is 9 3/4, and that's a good size for my hand. What you're looking for in sizing your hand straps here is you want something that can easily go around over your hand, and then you want it to trail past your hand a few inches. About 2-3 inches is good. So for me, that's 9 3/4 is a good length to do so. When I prepped these earlier, I just used a pair of shears and and a razor knife to cut them out, and I kind of like cutting them out in sections of 3 because sometimes my leather is a little wonky shaped, and you know, there's some flaws in the leather that you don't necessarily want. So it makes it easier to cut around certain pieces of my leather. And so the width of these straps is 1/4 inch. I like that because it's a nice width base, so that the straps don't roll over. It gives me room to punch a hole in the ends of the leather straps, and you know, and they're not too thick that I can't load up a bunch of straps onto one hand, so that I can do some of the more complex braids. Basically, you're going to want a nice solid ruler that that won't get cut up too badly by your knife. So a couple tools I have here for this is, so this is for those who are familiar with fabric cutting, this is a fabric cutting wheel, so it allows you to do long straight cuts with it. This also works pretty well on cutting the leather, although you do have to press down pretty hard. The other one is just a regular old X-Acto knife or razor knife. You know, you want to use a sharp blade. You know, so if the blade is a little dull, or if you know, it's been used a little bit, you're going to want to replace it. Or if you're familiar with sharpening, give it a little strop every so often to kind of re-hone that edge. And then the last thing you're going to need is a hole punch. So this is just a standard rotary leather hole punch. You want to use the smallest punch, but I'm missing mine today, and so I'm going to use the next smallest one. Hold on. Sorry about that. That was my fireplace making noises. So you're going to want to use the smallest one, but I'm missing mine, and so I'm going to use the next smallest one. So basically, using a pen, you know, just measure out, you know, you can make them, you know, make it as wide as you want. You know, you can set up to cut as many off the same strip as you want. Once you've got it, you know, the basic blocks cut out, so we're gonna cut them down. Once you're strapping, because I like to use you know, cutting 3 out, so this is 3/4 of an inch wide. So you can see it doesn't quite cover the leather anymore, and it's real easy to tip it over. So what I like to do is once you start to get into that narrow, just grab another piece and put it down, and so that it's nice and balanced. So what you want to do is you want to line up the edge, line up your markers. Leather is a little funny, so you're going to have to sit there and kind of play with it a little bit to get it lined up. And then once you do, you know, I'm going to start with this and just kind of line it up onto the edge of the ruler and just press down really hard. Now the nice thing about the rotary tool is you can, makes it easy to kind of roll it back and forth. To get that cut. So as you can see, the leather down here kind of shifted away from the line, so it was a good thing I wasn't cutting down here. So once that is done, you got that. Now a lot of times it won't cut all the way through, and that's actually okay. It just means that your cutting surface can stay safer. And what you can do then is just take your razor knife, and I'm going to carefully start a slit. And now because the leather is cut down pretty well right here, we can actually just kind of pull this through, and your knife is going to naturally stay in that deep groove. So this way we can sit there and finish the cut off. So, and ever so often you will get that. And so if you're particular like me, just kind of come in, trim that away. So now you can just as easily do that with your razor knife if you've got an X-Acto knife or a razor knife, but you don't have one of these cutting wheels. So just a little bit of pre-scoring here. Just gonna make a couple passes. That one went through most of the way, so we'll just finish that off like so. So this is where your hole punch is going to come in handy. I recommend having a piece of scrap leather. This was a former hand strap where I accidentally punched the hole a little too close to the edge, so I now use this as my scrap leather. So what you're going to want to do is just go ahead, you're just going to punch a hole. I like to test close mine because sometimes the locked position for your rotary puts that punch right there on the edge, so you kind of want to tilt it down a little bit so that it fits right, and then you're just going to center it as best you can and squeeze. Most of the time it's not going to go all the way through, and this is why you want that scrap leather. So you just kind of stick it underneath there, give it another good squeeze, finish driving it through, and pull it off. A little off right there, but that'll work for a while. So that is how you make a leather hand strap here. And to prepare a hand strap for braiding, all you do is you measure out the length of your threads. Whereas previously in the finger looping, I recommended not cutting your individual loops away. This case, you're going to want to go ahead and cut those individual loops out, because the cut ends is what's going to get tied onto the ends of the threads. And so here, see if I can focus on my hand here. Here we go. So using a little bit of moisture. Alright, and we're just gonna guide it through. So some threads, some materials are easier to thread than others. This silk bamboo that I'm using here, wonderful stuff, feels great, but if it's not a fresh cut, it will fray pretty quickly. So just using a standard overhand knot. I prefer using a square knot versus the granny knot. The difference is is that how you put that second loop through. So, but anyways, so you tie your ends to your strap, and then on this short piece for demo, what happens is that the middle of the loop now becomes the point in which you can tie off your lark's head knot to. And now, because of with the lark's head knot, there is no open end for anything to slide around off of. It actually secures it nice and a little bit better. It won't slip off. But the other nice thing is that as you braid, some braids will cause the top to braid up faster, and so your loops will start to do this. With this, especially at the beginning, once you get a couple of braids in, or a couple of moves in, you won't get this. But at the beginning, you can kind of get this like this, so that you can actually adjust your loop. So if you know that a particular braid tends to do this towards the end, you can actually take your loop and kind of pre-feed it this way, so that way by the time you get towards the end, you work this way. But that's something that you pick up with practice. So that is hand straps and how to make them. So thanks for watching.